Tonight, the international alarm as Israel bans the UN's Palestinian Relief Agency. The backlash grows against Donald Trump's campaign comments on Puerto Ricans. COVID review, Australia to get a Centre for Disease Control to fight future pandemics. And the Defence Force unveils the new Blackhawk helicopter fleet. I'm Janice Petersen. This is SBS World News. Good evening. Israel has passed 2 laws that ban UNRWA, the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency, from operating in Israel and occupied areas under its control. Australia has joined many of Israel's Western allies in expressing alarm over the unprecedented move, with fears it'll worsen the humanitarian situation in Gaza. The agency, established in 1949, is accused by Israel of cooperating with the militant group Hamas.
Lawmakers in Israel's Knesset green-light legislation, with 92 in favour and 10 against, barring UNRWA from conducting any activity in Israel and occupied territories. Israel has long called for UNRWA to be disbanded, accusing the UN Relief and Works Agency of having ties to Hamas militants, and says some of the agency's 13,000 staff were involved in the October 7 attack.
UNRWA, as an organisation, is infected with terrorism. Not a few bad apples, as UNRWA employees like to make out.
The agency staunchly denies it aids armed groups and says it acts quickly to purge any suspected militants from its ranks. The ban, which enters into force in 90 days, has sparked global condemnation. UNRWA's chief says it sets a dangerous precedent and violates Israel's obligations under international law. In a post on X, Philippe Lazzarini said, "These bills will only deepen the suffering of Palestinians, especially in Gaza, where people have been going through more than a year of sheer hell. These bills are nothing less than collective punishment." Criticism from, among others, the UK, France and Australia, with the Foreign Minister saying, UNRWA does life-saving work. Australia opposes the Israeli Knesset's decision to severely restrict UNRWA's work. Penny Wong joining others, fearing the decision could cripple humanitarian aid distribution in the Gaza Strip, at a time when Israel is under US pressure to allow in more food and supplies. A lifeline in Gaza, millions rely on UNRWA for necessities, including food, water and hygiene supplies. Since the October 7 attacks, nearly 45% of Gaza's population has been sheltering in UNRWA schools, clinics and other facilities. The latest strikes in Gaza have killed at least 10 people and wounded 20 others, say Palestinian health officials. This as Israeli forces intensify operations in northern Gaza. The local emergency service says IDF tanks are closing in, trapping around 100,000 civilians. Israel says it captured some 100 suspected Hamas militants in a raid on a hospital in the Jabalia refugee camp. Only a few doctors remain to care for the hundreds of patients. Watching on as people mourn their loved ones. Workers at the hospital say there was no Hamas presence there. Rochelle Harrison-Pless, SBS World News.
Well, for more on this, I've been speaking to Lucia Goldsmith, the head of humanitarian for Oxfam Australia. Lucia, what's the current situation on the ground there in Gaza?
The situation is very concerning. There's over 1.9 million people who have been displaced multiple times. They are living in very precarious conditions with very limited access to safe and adequate shelter, food and water.
And what role has UNRWA played in aid delivery to Palestinians in Gaza?
Virtually all of the population of Gaza relies on services that UNRWA provides. They have been, over the past couple of decades, providing a wide range of services from shelter to education and healthcare.
And so, logistically, what sort of impact do you think this new legislation by Israel will have on the already dire humanitarian situation there?
It is going to have a significant impact. Delivering aid across Gaza is already an incredibly challenging enterprise. It is very difficult to get relief items into Gaza. And once in, it is very dangerous for humanitarian workers to distribute aid and for Palestinians to be able to access that aid safely. Over the past year, we have lost over 300 humanitarians who are delivering life-saving assistance to people across Gaza. More than half of them were from UNRWA.
Have you had a chance to speak to people there? What's the reaction been like to this development?
People are very concerned and worried about what this is going to mean for their ability to access essential life-saving services. UNRWA is by far the largest provider of aid across Gaza. There isn't any agency that can step in and deliver aid at scale that's needed. And so they are understandably very concerned about their ability to access services.
Lucia Goldsmith, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
The fallout from Donald Trump's New York rally is mounting after a comedian at the event made offensive remarks about Puerto Rico. The Archbishop of the US territory has called on Donald Trump to apologise, while Kamala Harris says it reveals nothing new about the former president.
Donald Trump in the swing state of Georgia, but New York on his mind.
Last night we had a great rally at Madison Square Garden.
Great by whose definition being the question, after a comedian denigrated Puerto Rico.
There's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico.
Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, responding while campaigning in Wisconsin.
Maybe it's a stupid racist joke, as you said. Maybe it's not. I haven't seen it. I'm not going to comment on the specifics of the joke. But I think that we have to stop getting so offended at every little thing in the United States of America. I'm so over it.
Puerto Ricans aren't. Not the owner of this Pennsylvania restaurant.
And now he's, bashing us and talking bad about us. We're part of the United States. We are Americans.
Nor Geraldo Rivera, a former Fox News personality, an American household name whose father was from Puerto Rico and who was a Trump ally.
This is hate speech, and I've had it. Madison Square Garden is famous for a lot of things. I think it will be famous for ending President Trump's meteoric campaign to be reelected.
Trump's son Eric seemingly unaware.
Did anybody watch Madison Square Garden? Was anybody impressed last night? How cool is that?
Kamala Harris aware and taking the attack straight to Donald Trump.
This is not new about him, by the way. What he did last night is not a discovery. Donald Trump spends full time trying to have Americans point their finger at each other. Fans the fuel of hate and division. And that's why people are exhausted with him.
20,000 people packed the arena. Trump, while holding a rally in Atlanta, Georgia, dwelling on his crowd size in New York.
We filled up Madison Square Garden last night. We could have filled it up 10 times.
Barack Obama campaigning for the Democrats in Pennsylvania and outraged.
The most racist, sexist, bigoted stereotypes. One guy called Puerto Rico, quote, an island of garbage. These are fellow citizens he's talking about. Here in Philadelphia.
Trump's running mate having to make a second attempt at dismissing the controversy.
A comedian told a joke, and I don't think that's news worth making. I think what is news is that Americans can't afford their groceries because Kamala Harris has been a terrible vice president. And that's what the American people and the American media should focus on.
Kamala Harris beaming in Michigan. The election is about to enter its final week.
And correspondent Prue Lewan joins us from New York. Good evening, Prue. The Archbishop of San Juan, Puerto Rico, has written to Donald Trump. How important do you think that intervention will be?
Well, a very good evening to you, Janice. It was a day of quite extraordinary symmetry that wasn't expected at the beginning of the day, I think, for anyone at all. Donald Trump begins the day by talking about, to a faith group in Atlanta, Georgia, the importance of religion, that it is the glue, the fabric that holds together the United States. And perhaps by the end of the day, his campaign got an illustration as to how important religion might be to it over the next 7 days. That's because, as you mentioned, the Archbishop of San Juan, Puerto Rico, puts out a public letter, an open letter to Donald Trump on the internet, which has subsequently taken off, even though he put it out late in the evening. He says he consulted his fellow bishops in Puerto Rico, and he said he's found the comments by the comedian at, quote, your rally, talking to Donald Trump, dismaying and appalling, and that they promote hate. He went on and said that he expected Donald Trump to disavow these comments, that they don't reflect his personal or political viewpoint. And he continued to go on and said that the comments needed to be disavowed not just by the Trump campaign, but by Donald Trump himself personally. The Archbishop closed the letter by saying that he wished wisdom in his decision-making on the president, that he be the past president, the one who wants to be the future president and whose followers call him Mr. President. He said he wished upon him wisdom in his decision-making. It was a day, I think, that no one, in terms of Madison Square Garden yesterday, when we saw Donald Trump swaying to the music, expected today.
Well, a lot of people talk about that October surprise during the campaigns, don't they? Maybe this is it. But just how damaging do you think all of this could be for the Trump campaign?
Janice, we don't need to speculate. We can just look at the numbers. Puerto Ricans are in a very unusual situation. If they live in the United States, they're all US residents, they can vote. If they live on the island, they can't. It's a long story, it's complicated, but that's the way it is. Well, there are more Puerto Ricans in the US mainland, on the US mainland, than on the island. And they are in very important states for this election. There are 450,000 plus Puerto Ricans in the most important swing state of Pennsylvania. Take a look at these images. This is what so many Puerto Ricans remember of Donald Trump. It's when he went to their island after the devastation of Hurricane Maria in 2017, and he threw paper towels at people who had lost their clean water, who had lost their power, who went without power for many months. And certainly over the last 24 hours, people have been talking about that event. That's the other event that Donald Trump is seared into their minds. Whether it affects the election, we don't know, but Donald Trump and his team will be in that important state of Pennsylvania tomorrow. There is, of course, just 1 week to go.
1 week to go till the big day. Thanks so much. That's Prue Lewan updating us from New York. Russia has dismissed allegations of interference in the Georgian election as thousands protested against the result on the streets of the capital. The Georgian president encouraging people to demonstrate, saying the election was stolen.
Thousands gathered outside Parliament accusing the ruling Georgian Dream Party of stealing the election.
They tried to steal your future, but no one has the right to do that, and you will not allow it.
Many in the crowd holding up anti-Russian signs accusing Moscow of meddling.
We hope we will win finally, and the Russian dream will go home in Russia, in Moscow, and we will be part of European Union.
We are here because we don't want Russia. We don't want back to Russia. We don't want back to Soviet Union. And Georgia is a pro-European country.
Georgia's Electoral Commission declared the Georgian Dream Party won Saturday's election with 54% of the vote. The party has deep ties with Moscow and has passed increasingly authoritarian laws. Russia, though, has denied claims of involvement.
The allegations are of a repetitive character already. A first sign of trouble, and Russia is to blame for meddling. No, this is not the case. There was no interference. The allegations are unfounded.
International election monitors reported incidents of vote buying, voter intimidation and ballot stuffing. The European Union had already frozen Georgia's bid to join the EU, now calling for an investigation into the allegations.
They have a right to see that electoral irregularities are investigated swiftly, transparently and independently.
One European leader, though, flew in to congratulate the Georgian Dream Party. The Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, seen as one of Moscow's strongest allies in the EU, arrived in Tbilisi the day after the results were announced.
We encourage Georgia's governing officials to consider the relationship they want with the Euro-Atlantic community, rather than strengthening policies that are praised by authoritarians.
Opposition politicians are pushing for the results to be declared invalid, claiming Georgia will become a one-party state if they don't take up their mandates in the parliament. Gloria Kleisch, SBS World News.
The head of NATO has confirmed North Korean troops are in Russia, calling it a dangerous expansion of the Ukraine war. Mark Rutte says military units were sent to the Kursk region, where Ukraine launched an offensive in August. Neither the Russian president nor the North Korean leader has commented. So just how concerning is North Korea's renewed friendship with Russia? SBS reporter Alexandra Jones explains.
North Korea's relationship with Russia dates back to the end of the Second World War, when the Japanese Empire collapsed, ending its 35-year occupation of the Korean peninsula. Without its own government, Korea was temporarily divided along the 38th parallel by 2 US soldiers looking at a National Geographic map. The northern half allied to the Soviet Union and the south to the United States. The Korean War made the division more permanent. Now, after decades of growing distance, North Korea's alliance with Russia appears to have entered a new phase.
The deepening military cooperation between Russia and North Korea is a threat to both the Indo-Pacific and Euro-Atlantic security.
It's very dangerous, very dangerous.
The Pentagon has confirmed around 10,000 North Korean soldiers are in Russia. It's not clear how many have already arrived in Kursk. NATO head Mark Rutte says the deployment breaches UN Security Council resolutions and shows President Putin's growing desperation in the conflict.
Over 600,000 Russian soldiers have been killed or wounded in Putin's war, and he is unable to sustain his assault on Ukraine without foreign support.
This is the first time North Korea has sent thousands of troops overseas. Lee Hyun-sung spent 3 years in the North Korean army before he defected with his family 10 years ago.
We always educate that we will unify Korea by force. We never got any indication that we will be deployed to the foreign soil.
This development also threatens already deteriorating relations on the Korean peninsula. In January, Kim Jong-un shocked the region by formally abandoning a long-time official goal of peaceful reunification, calling the South an enemy state.
Actually surprised me as well, because, it's the legacy of the Kim family regime. The final victory of the Korean Revolution is the unification.
This month, Pyongyang accused Seoul of sending drones carrying anti-regime leaflets into the northern capital. The north then demolished several roads leading to the south after its own months-long campaign sending balloons filled with rubbish into South Korea. Seoul's conservative government, which returned to power in 2022, is also stepping up its military rhetoric, recently toughening its defence plan designed to deter the persistent threat posed by North Korea, and indicated it is considering sending weapons to Ukraine.
북한의 러시아 파병은 한반도와 유럽을 넘어 전 세계의 안보를 위협하는 도발이라는 점에 의견을 같이 했습니다.
North Korea's active participation in Russia could give NATO an excuse to increase its support for Ukraine, whose foreign minister renewed the country's appeal for NATO to lift restrictions on its use of long-range missiles against Russia. As well as much-needed cash in exchange for Pyongyang's troops, Russia is expected to provide intelligence and more sophisticated military technology, which could include both nuclear and satellite capabilities. North Korea's previously untested force would also gain combat experience, another concern for the military alliance between the US, South Korea and Japan.
If they don't perform well, this could be a big embarrassment as well as a catastrophe for internal politics within North Korea. So they're taking a risk.
If their gamble pays off, it not only presents a major escalation in Ukraine, but a fundamental power shift in inter-Korea relations and a major security challenge for the Indo-Pacific region.
Alexandra Jones reporting there. And the mayor of Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, says at least 4 people have been killed in Russian airstrikes overnight. Several buildings were badly damaged, including the Держprom building, one of the city's most celebrated landmarks, which is on the UNESCO's tentative list of World Heritage Sites. In Kiev, falling debris from a destroyed Russian drone injured 4 people and set a residential building on fire. In Iceland, ahead of the 4th Ukraine-Northern Europe summit, Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky said his country's troops had killed 800 Russian forces in one day on the Eastern Front. A policeman protecting polio vaccination teams in Pakistan has been shot dead. Officials say 2 assailants were also killed in the attack. As another campaign gets underway to protect more than 45 million children from polio, authorities say there's been a surge in cases, with 41 recorded this year. The cases are in new areas bordering Afghanistan, where officials say the Taliban stopped vaccination efforts. Attackers on health workers are common. An inquiry into the Commonwealth's response to the COVID pandemic has found an erosion of public trust in governments and health systems, and says that was partly due to inconsistent messaging from state and federal governments and heavy restrictions. Now the federal government's committed more than $250 million for an Australian Centre for Disease Control.
A once-in-a-century pandemic with lifelong consequences, from shutting international borders to lengthy lockdowns and vaccine mandates. 4 years on, an inquiry into the Commonwealth's response to COVID-19 finding there are major lessons to be learned. And with the reality of another pandemic, this stark warning.
Right now, we are arguably worse placed as a country to deal with a pandemic than we were in early 2020.
That's because of the significant impacts on health services and government debts from COVID. But the biggest concern, the erosion of public trust.
Good leadership, good communication will automatically lead to trust, and throw in some evidence as well. All that will help.
Inconsistent responses and messaging between states and the Commonwealth, and heavy-handed restrictions eroded trust in governments. While National Cabinet did prove effective, it also highlighted divisions. At times, there were contradictory explanations of decisions by leaders, further fueling confusion and mistrust. We cannot assume the public will comply with similar restrictions in a future public health emergency, and that vaccine mandates had the biggest negative impact on trust. The human toll also highlighting existing inequities, from the elderly to the culturally and linguistically diverse. At times, such as in the Delta wave, the death rate of people born overseas was almost 4 times higher than those born in Australia. Noting courageous decisions taken by leaders early on, the massive JobKeeper wage subsidy was pivotal, but some mistakes were costly. One study estimates Australia's delayed vaccine rollout had a direct economic cost of $31 billion through additional lockdowns.
Big decisions were taken and big mistakes were made. Those mistakes were costly and they were inflationary.
It was a hit job. And frankly, I just don't think the Albanese government gets anything right at the moment.
The report stresses the importance of better preparedness and coordination between governments. Critical to that, establishing a Centre for Disease Control, already a Labor commitment. The government today announcing $251 million towards the new body. Pablo Vinales, SBS World News.
Coming up, a child killed and others injured as a car hits a Melbourne school. Upgrade uproar, the Prime Minister says he's done nothing wrong. And the department store getting bigger to survive. An 11-year-old boy has been killed after a car crashed into a Melbourne primary school this afternoon. The boy was taken to hospital in a critical condition where he died. 4 other children aged 10 and 11 were also hospitalised and are being treated for non-life-threatening injuries. Police say the car was driving outside Auburn South Primary School when it left the road and crashed through the school fence.
A 40-year-old female has driven to the school to collect a child. After collecting the child, she's performed a U-turn and collided into the fence of the school, crashing through the fence, where unfortunately she has struck a table where there were 5 children seated within the school grounds.
The driver has been arrested for questioning. The federal opposition is demanding the Prime Minister refer himself to the anti-corruption watchdog over thousands of dollars in free Qantas flight upgrades. Anthony Albanese says he's done nothing wrong. Also questioning free flights Peter Dutton has accepted on the private jet of mining billionaire Gina Rinehart.
A cosy jet-setting relationship grounding the Prime Minister's agenda.
I've been completely transparent about this. All of my flights have been declared.
A new book from journalist and former Liberal staffer Joe Aston chronicling 22 free Qantas flight upgrades over a decade, including when Anthony Albanese was Transport Minister and Shadow Transport Minister, and further claiming, according to Qantas insiders, Albanese would liaise with Joyce directly about his personal travel.
I think the Prime Minister should take the initiative to refer this matter to the Integrity Commission.
The Prime Minister admitting he did speak with Alan Joyce about 2 non-commercial flights, but listing off a range of federal politicians from both parties who've also been upgraded free of charge.
There's no accusation being made with any specifics at all about any of this. None.
He maintains the perks did not affect his government's policy decisions.
What you need to do is to make sure you stick to the rules. I've done that at all times.
While facing questions from the opposition about whether he breached ministerial standards, keen to put the focus back on Peter Dutton's own travel itinerary.
I didn't have to declare any flights on private jets owned by billionaires like Gina Rinehart because I haven't engaged in it.
I've been very transparent. I've declared all of that, which is why Mr Albanese knows about it, and I wasn't the Transport Minister picking up the phone to Alan Joyce.
The Prime Minister maintains he does not recall contacting the former Qantas boss directly about any commercial flight upgrades, but the opposition wants to hear another side of the story, pushing to recall Alan Joyce to appear before a Senate committee, something that would require crossbench support.
They have to actually address the bigger issue that we should be talking about here, not this one-off incident, but this broader issue of a total lack of transparency and accountability when it comes to lobbying, ministerial diaries, who has access.
What isn't healthy, though, is a clear line of sight on covert influence, and that's what we need to address, I think.
Fresh scrutiny on the way power is wielded in these halls. Anna Henderson, SBS World News.
Australia's Defence Force has debuted its new Blackhawk helicopters, giving a rare view of the replacements for the troubled Taipan choppers. The new fleet is so far on budget and on schedule to be in service early next year.
Training with live ammunition. The scenario, an Australian embassy overrun in a foreign nation. UH-60M Blackhawks carrying special forces to target combatants before carrying out a swift rooftop extraction. Secure in the air, a successful mission accomplished for this new US-supplied workhorse.
It's a fully capable aircraft. It's a mature and reliable aircraft.
With 1,400 training hours complete, the Blackhawk's November assignment, counter-terrorism drills across Sydney.
Is very specific training, low level, sometimes over urban centres.
Warning residents.
In particular circumstances, you will see ground troops.
But the green light for full operations not expected to come until after summer, unable to support at the height of the bushfire and flood season.
Due to the introduction into service that we've just been discussing, the aircraft will not be available.
In action today, 3 of the 40 Blackhawk helicopters Australia has on order. The full fleet scheduled to be delivered by 2030.
The aircraft will replace the scandal-plagued Taipan helicopters, grounded after last year's North Queensland crash, killing 4 troops on board.
We eagerly await the findings of those investigations and we'll look to adjust and incorporate those into the way we operate.
Having denied Ukrainian requests to donate the Taipans, confirmation today 28 of those airframes have now been destroyed. The Blackhawks do lack some of its Forerunners' advanced features, but top brass say it's not a downgrade.
From our perspective, we've moved on from the Taipan. It's about making this platform perform in the roles and the missions that are required.
With safety a priority. Naveen Razik, SBS World News.
Australia's peak Jewish body has launched legal action against an Islamic preacher in Sydney's West over claims he's made anti-Semitic sermons that were uploaded online. Reporter Rayanne Tamer has the details.
The Executive Council of Australian Jewry has started legal proceedings here at the Federal Court of Australia against Wissam Haddad, also known as Abu Usaid. Haddad describes himself as a Muslim preacher and runs a small Islamic centre in Bankstown in Sydney's southwest. Court documents allege that speeches he made in November last year contravene the Racial Discrimination Act, that Haddad made derogatory generalisations about Jewish people, like this.
Where we find the majority of banks are owned by the Jews, what are they doing? Hiding like the rats that they are.
The council says it tried to conciliate in good faith, but it wasn't successful.
Once you open the door to any group being able to vilify and dehumanise another group, there's no end to it.
Haddad's lawyers say his comments were taken out of context and misinterpreted after the October 7 Hamas attacks and Israel's ongoing war in Gaza. They also say Haddad took steps to conciliate the matter, but his efforts weren't accepted by the council.
He has offered for people who do have issues with what he has said to attend his centre, to attend the mosque, to sit down so he can clarify the comments with them in front of his congregation and make sure that they're aware of exactly what he means by his comments. He's even happy to release a joint statement together as a unified body.
The council says it's not seeking monetary compensation. It is asking for a public correction made by Haddad's centre that the uploaded videos be removed and that Haddad be prevented from uploading any other similar videos in the future. The matter will be heard in court at a later date.
Rayanne Tamer reporting there. It's a condition affecting more than 2.8 million Australian men over the age of 50. Benign prostate hyperplasia is a non-cancerous enlargement of the prostate. It's severely underdiagnosed and new research is hoping to change that.
This is the bladder, this is the prostate.
A taboo topic, causing men to ignore these symptoms.
They might feel embarrassed or their self-esteem has taken a bit of a hit.
Benign prostatic hyperplasia, or BPH, causes the prostate to enlarge as some men age. While a healthy prostate is about the size of a walnut, an enlarged one can grow to the size of a mandarin or even a lemon.
Typical types of symptoms that a man might experience when the prostate is causing problems could include difficulties getting started to urinate, having a weak or dribbling urinary flow, and also having symptoms that we refer to as fun, because it's anything but fun. And fun stands for frequency, urgency and nocturia. And nocturia means getting up at night to urinate.
Dr. Ethan Seller began experiencing symptoms of BPH in his 50s.
Like most men, and being a very busy doctor, I ignored my condition until I was starting to get up myself multiple times a night to go to the toilet. That was by far my most distressing symptoms.
New research shows BPH affects 2.8 million Australian men, 1 in 2 men above the age of 50 and 8 in 10 men above the age of 80. Despite the large number of cases, only 1 in 10 visit their doctors soon after symptoms begin, and 2 out of 5 fail to seek treatment.
We know that people from culturally and linguistic diverse communities may come from a culture where they do not talk about reproductive or urinary tract systems due to shame, due to the taboos associated with that part of the body.
Benign prostatic hyperplasia is commonly associated with depression, anxiety and stress. Although it's not cancerous, it can cause serious lower urinary tract issues if not treated.
It can actually ultimately lead to a complete blockage of the passage of urine, and that's an event that most men will never forget if they come to that.
Experts hope the study will help men speak to a doctor about their symptoms and shatter the stigma. Asha Abdi, SBS World News.
Well, as one fashion retailer collapses, another is expanding. SBS Finance Editor Ricardo Gonçalves joins us now with the details. So, Ricardo, what's happening to department store Myer?
Janice, well, yesterday we told you about how specialty fashion retailer Mosaic Brands has fallen into voluntary administration as it seeks to offload some of its brands. But today Myer has revealed it will become bigger. It's buying the 5 brands which trade under the Apparel Brands banner owned by Solomon Lew's Premier Investments. It's a near $900 million deal which will also see Mr Lew gain a seat at the Myer board and is something he had been seeking for quite some time. Apparel Brands has a network of more than 700 stores, mainly targeting a younger demographic with more than 5,500 employees.
By curating and growing our portfolio of Myer exclusive and private label brands with Apparel Brands, we can appeal to different shoppers that are complementary to Myer's existing customer base.
The deal needs regulatory and shareholder approval. And Myer shares fell today, but Premier Investments surged nearly 10% to be the day's top performer on the ASX 200. Qantas hit another record high, while energy stocks fell. All up, the Australian share market rose around 1/3% as investors continue to look ahead to the US presidential election.
I mean, we're a week and a bit away from the election, and what comes after that is going to be interesting because whoever wins, the odds are you might not get both houses. So if you get one side, the other side is going to block it. And there will be some serious spending that's going to come through, and that's going to be inflationary. So that's what the bond market is telling you.
Oil continues to trade at a 6-week low at $71.27 US a barrel, while gold is at a record high at almost $2,757 US an ounce. The Australian dollar is weaker against the greenback, buying 65.65 US, and is lower against the other major global currencies ahead of the official inflation report due out here just before lunchtime tomorrow. And New South Wales teachers will be protected against future inflationary pressures through an annual $1,000 bonus if inflation exceeds 4.5%. It's part of a new salary agreement which has been accepted and includes a 9% pay rise over 3 years, an additional 1% increase in superannuation over 2 years, and extra school development or pupil-free days.
What we have now are wonderful opportunities where the employer, finally, after so many years, is offering the profession a genuine sense of respect in order for our profession to attract and retain the teachers that we need.
The Teachers Federation says negotiating greater flexibility is a win, particularly for women who make up 80% of the teaching workforce. Australian home prices are still breaking records. Property group Domain says the median price for both a house and a unit across Australia reached new highs in the September quarter. And these are the cities where it's never been more expensive to buy a house. However, the pace of growth is slowing.
We've seen that slowdown is much more pronounced for house prices compared to unit prices. And I think that says a lot about affordability steering demand towards more affordable property types, such as units. And it's been quite interesting, even across the different capital cities. We've seen pretty much a deceleration of most capital cities in terms of their pace of growth, apart from units in Sydney and Melbourne.
Domain reports that for the first time in 25 years, Brisbane has become the second most expensive city to buy a unit. And Australia Post has been recognised as one of the world's top-performing postal systems by a unit of the UN, despite higher stamp prices and fewer post offices. Out of the 174 countries reviewed, it was one of only 7 to receive a level 10 score by the Universal Postal Union, along with services in Switzerland, Germany and France. The score is based on 4 R's: reliability, reach, relevance and resilience. Its CEO, Paul Graham, saying the service is undergoing a major transformation and is modernising its business. He also received a 13% increase in total pay last financial year to $2.7 million, as revealed by the company's annual report released late last week, along with an $88.5 million pre-tax company loss for the year. Janice.
Thanks for the update, Ricardo. Coming up, family first, then US politics, how a Democrat and Republican couple keep the peace at home in a divided nation. Plus, one of the most spectacular goals in Matildas history sparks a stunning comeback against Germany. In this year's race for the White House, the US is more partisan than ever. Even family relations are being tested like never before.
Oh, my God.
Family dinners at the Danker household for Ed and Tracy are a little tense right now.
He's been convicted. How does this guy even get...
He said, she said.
Let me finish. I mean, he said he was convicted by a jury.
Tracy switched her allegiance to the Republican Party in 2016 to support Donald Trump.
Just seeing the turnout at his rallies and his support, driving through communities and even driving from the Carolinas to Pennsylvania, all the homeowners and businesses that support Trump, you know, I believe he's greatly in the lead.
Kamala Harris's performance so far is giving Ed hope she can win the race for the White House.
Considering the short amount of time she's had to get up to speed with everything, I think she's doing pretty well.
Their children, Devon and Jared, voted for the first time in 2020. Ed left it to Tracy to do the paperwork.
I had to register the kids because they were away at college, so I, of course, registered them as Republicans.
To Ed's delight, their daughter decided to back Joe Biden.
You can vote however you choose once you get in that little room and you make your choices. It doesn't matter how you registered.
Tracy joined the January the 6th rally in Washington when Trump encouraged people to fight for him.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol because you'll never take back our country with weakness.
Although she wasn't part of the mob that invaded the Capitol building 4 years ago after Biden's victory.
They did not bust down their doors.
Yes.
They did not break the glass.
They most certainly did.
They did not. Those doors were opened for them.
This is more like a cult than a political party, because no matter what the guy does, it doesn't seem to face these people. It just rolls. It's like a water off a duck's back. It rolls right off, and they don't. Oh no, he's our man.
I don't care about any of that. What I care about, are you going to keep us out of wars? Trump can do that.
The Dankers' destiny could well ride on the result of next week's election.
Well, we may be looking for another country to live in.
Yeah, we might be looking for another country to live in, because I don't know if I want to live another 4 years under the Democratic regime.
But after 26 years of marriage, wherever they end up living in the post-election era, the Dankers will be agreeing to disagree. John Baldock, SBS World News.
New data released by the UN shows global efforts to tackle climate change are well off track. Warming gases are accumulating faster than ever, and some researchers say forests are losing their ability to soak up carbon.
Trees are vital to help clean the air we breathe, soak up carbon emissions and provide a home for thousands of different birds, mammals and insects. Yet it's been revealed that more than a third of trees around the world are in trouble. Experts here at Kew worked on the latest Extinction Red List, which found deforestation is a major threat to life on Earth.
38% of the world's trees are threatened with extinction, more than all the threatened mammals, birds, amphibians and reptiles added together. So a huge number of species, and these are found all across the world. In 192 countries there is a threatened tree species. So yeah, there's work to do everywhere.
And it's not just trees joining the unenviable list. Animals and birds are highlighted too, such as the much-loved hedgehog. whose fortunes are going from bad to worse as wild spaces disappear.
Now that swelling on the branch is what kills the branch, and that's what causes the tree to die eventually.
With time running out, scientists are trying to find solutions. And here at Kew, this living library of trees is helping with conservation in the wild.
By using the extinction list, it does allow us to really focus on vulnerable species. We could then go and collect those species and try to grow them on in the arboretum to safeguard them, with the aim to then reintroduce them. And that's how we can really make a significant difference in protecting forests for the future.
And as autumn sets in for these trees, it's hoped this new list can help focus conservation efforts where it's most needed and safeguard future forests.
Helen Briggs reporting there. Well, interim Matildas coach Tom Zamani believes the side's confidence has been restored following a first win over Germany in 19 years. A spectacular goal from Kyra Cooney-Cross and a header from Claire Hunt secured a comeback victory over the Olympic bronze medalists.
How quickly things can change. The Matildas were totally outclassed by Germany 3 months ago at the Paris Olympics. But today was a reminder of what they can do.
That's what we wanted to see. We wanted to see a team that looked like what we want the Matildas to be and what we feel the Matildas is about.
Germany was looking to send off the retiring Alexandra Popp in style, and the hosts were on their way to doing just that, taking the lead inside 5 minutes, before a moment of magic from Kyra Cooney-Cross drew the Matildas level.
Cooney-Cross is going to shoot from distance. Incredible! Australia are level!
The 22-year-old scoring one of the greatest goals in the side's history, with half-time looming.
Some of the girls made comments before that I do it in training all the time, but I've never had the chance to do it in a game because I'm a lot deeper playing in the 6. But today I got the opportunity to play more higher up as a 8 or 10, and yeah, I guess I got the opportunity. I took it.
Germany dominated possession and completed almost 3 times as many passes as Australia, but the Matildas refused to settle for a draw.
And it's 2-1 for Australia! Claire Hunt!
Claire Hunt's 77th minute header, sealing a first win over the world's 4th-ranked nation in 19 years.
We feel we've got footballers who can play good football, but tonight, we didn't get an opportunity to play an awful lot of good football, but we hung in and we showed a great deal of determination and drive.
The Matildas will close out 2024 with home matches against Brazil and Chinese Taipei. Interim coach Tom Zamani is expecting to still be in charge as the search for a permanent coach continues. Adrian Archuli, SBS World News.
It was a Spanish clean sweep at this morning's Ballon d'Or Awards. Women's World Cup winner Aitana Bonmati was named the world's best female footballer for a 2nd year running. Barcelona's teen sensation Lamine Yamal took out the honours in the under-21 category, while Manchester City midfielder Rodri beat out Brazil's Vinicius Jr. and England's Jude Bellingham for the men's Ballon d'Or.
I was a kid watching Messi and Cristiano lifting these kind of trophies every year, and my dream was to play one day with them, never to stand here talking to you right now.
Real Madrid didn't send any representatives to the event after learning that Vinicius Jr. had missed out on the top honour. Manchester United has begun the search for a new men's first team manager after sacking Erik ten Hag. The Dutchman was relieved of his duties with the Red Devils sitting 14th on the Premier League table. Former players have urged the club's new owners to act fast or risk falling even further behind their rivals.
You want to win the Premier League, you've got to match what they have, and we are a far bit behind. So we need to start this process now and not in the summer.
Former striker Ruud van Nistelrooy will take charge of the side until a new permanent manager is appointed. The LA Dodgers are on the cusp of winning a 2nd Major League Baseball title of the 2020s. The Dodgers lead the World Series 3-0 after a 4-2 victory over the Yankees in New York. Freddie Freeman became just the 3rd player ever to hit a home run in the opening 3 games of the series. Los Angeles can lift the trophy tomorrow with a victory in Game 4. Next year's British and Irish Lions tour will have extra meaning for Wallabies winger Dylan Peach. The Wiradjuri man has helped to design the playing jersey for the Test series. His artwork tells a story of connection to culture and country.
The biggest thing about Aboriginal culture and what I like to do with my art is all about connection. And that's a big thing, is just connecting back to Australia, and that's what the Lions are going to do.
The Wallabies will travel to the UK on Thursday for next month's spring tour. Coming up, the weather details and 40 years of electronic block building celebrated with a massive multiplayer event. To the weather forecast now in the major centres. Showers and a possible storm ahead for Darwin. Some showers likely in Brisbane. Partly cloudy skies for Sydney. The cloud to clear in Canberra. Partly cloudy in Melbourne and Hobart. Sunny, heading for a top of 26 in Adelaide. Let's see what's happening further afield now. Rain ahead in Port Vila. Showers in Apia, Auckland and Wellington. Cloudy skies in Christchurch. Zipping across to Southeast Asia now. Thunderstorms on the way for Singapore, Honiara, Port Moresby and Bangkok. Grey and cloudy in Jakarta. Let's head further north now. Cloudy and grey for Beijing, Shanghai, Hanoi and Hong Kong. Rain in Manila and Tokyo. Heading west, it'll be fine and bright for Beirut, cloudy in Baghdad and Islamabad and fine in New Delhi. To Europe now, snowfall ahead for Moscow, cloudy in Istanbul and Budapest, rain in Madrid, foggy in Rome, fine for Athens and grey in London. To Africa now, fine weather on the way for Algiers, Johannesburg and Cairo, wet weather in Casablanca, cloudy in Addis Ababa and Nairobi, and thunderstorms in Lagos. To South America now, cloudy skies for Santiago, Rio and Buenos Aires, rain in Bogotá, scattered showers in Panama City. And for North America, fine and bright and sunny for New York and Washington DC, snowfall in Denver, showers in Dallas and Miami, fine in LA, grey skies in Mexico City and Havana, showers in Vancouver and Honolulu. It's a game you, your children or even your parents might have played. Tetris is celebrating its 40th birthday.
A game spanning generations and the globe. Crowds here are playing Tetris like never before.
It's a really world first. Have you ever been able to sort of play Tetris on a grand scale like this?
Giant, interactive, high-resolution screens.
We enjoyed it, didn't we?
Yeah, it was really exciting. I've never played Tetris before.
The objective is to manoeuvre falling blocks to complete a line before they become too high. It can get pretty addictive.
Tetris was created in 1984 by Russian programmer Alexei Pajitnov. Alexei says he came up with the name by joining the Greek prefix tetra, or four, and the word tennis.
You need a Tetris shot.
Since the 80s, the game's been played on evolving computer systems.
Tetris challenges the mind and puzzles the imagination.
Its owner says billions of games are still played online every year, even spawning a film.
We're here for Tetris.
About its move from the former Soviet Union to global success.
Now it's on the screen, it's in a big culture. That makes me really proud.
Have you been Tetrisized?
Tetris helped launch mass market games, and it's still a perfect fit for many. Yusuf Saudi, SBS World News.
It sure is, and a shout out to our news producer, Steph Yusuf, who's enjoyed beating all Tetris contenders nationally in an online competition back in 2005. And she says she still plays occasionally. Good on her. That is the world this Tuesday. You can catch up on our bulletins on SBS On Demand and stay up to date on the SBS News app or SBS News Online. Raina Sarampait will be back with our next bulletin. That's at 11 o'clock tonight. Till then, from the World News team, good night.